Well, Tate, you wrote and directed The Help, which was out this summer, now out on DVD. And there's been a lot of stories about your friendship with Catherine Stockett, who wrote the book. How did you originally make that decision to option the book for a film?
Well, I read her book before she had a publisher. Before, I mean, she had just gotten an agent, and she was really discouraged because no one was interested. She gave me the book, and I was just reading it on a plane, and I had a similar experience growing up in Jackson with an African American domestic who I basically call my co-mother, and I just loved in Catherine's novel getting to go into these women's lives outside of the white homes and see who they were as these beautiful, dynamic, smart people who were not victims, but just were victims of the circumstances back then. This is the only thing they could do for a living. And I just was like, I want to share that with the world.
You weren't well known as a director at the time that you optioned that book, and then suddenly the book takes off and becomes a huge, massive bestseller. Did other well-known directors and writers try to buy you out of that?
Absolutely. People, I wouldn't say they tried to pry it from my hands, but they definitely were hoping that I would eventually give up or cave and decide I wasn't the guy. But stubborn guy from Mississippi was not gonna let go of his pursuit. So that kind of shifted from people trying to radio silence, where nothing was happening until finally DreamWorks came on board and said, "Okay, let's do it."
Well, we talked to Octavia Spencer earlier, and I've heard you talk about this as well over the past year. But talk about Mississippi, shooting in Mississippi, and that being another character in the film.
Well, it's a major character of the film, and as a Mississippian, and as you know, as a Mississippian, it's been frustrating throughout cinematic history watching people try to get it right. And I had faith in myself that I could get the dialects right and the accents right and the subtle nuances that the South has through the characters, but there's just no faking Mississippi, and I had to film it there. I wanted the cast to be there. I wanted Viola and Octavia to be in the Mississippi Delta, where many of the ghosts of our past, you could still feel it in the air, and I just knew it would permeate the entire experience. And so I really, really wanted it to be there for visually, for spiritually, for motivation reasons, and we never had to use fake sweat. All that sweat you see on those actresses is real. There was no.
Well, once the book became a major bestseller and once you decided to make it into a film, there had to be some pressure on you just from family and friends alone to just not mess it up.
You know what? What people, what I heard often was just don't make Mississippi look bad. Please don't make Mississippi look bad. And I really kind of didn't engage people because I know that fear is there. Like, here we go again, we're bringing up the past. But what kept me from worrying about that, and it was knowing that the book and the film was going to have relationships such as Minnie and Celia's, which are also very present in the South then and now. It's not all black versus white. There's a beautiful gray matter that's often not shown, and so I didn't really listen to that. I felt strongly about that relationship, and so I just stuck to what the truth was about our time, and didn't feel the pressure to mold it in any certain way. And for me, it's a character piece first and foremost. I mean, it just happens to be set in Mississippi during some of our most horrific times. But I feel a story of an empowerment and courage. You can replace racism with any of the newest forms of it we have today.
The casting of this film had to be probably both fun and daunting. What do you remember about that process, and talk about the cast that you were able to assemble here?
Well, it really wasn't. When I began adapting the novel, I already knew Octavia Spencer was going to be Minnie, and Dallas and Janney was going to be Charlotte Phelan. But the studio and producers did a very brave thing in today's world of filmmaking. Is we didn't so-called cast up. They didn't force names and lists of stars of the moment. We got to make the movie the way you should, which is audition and find the best people possible. But lucky for me, many of the actresses in Hollywood had already read this book and loved it. So I had an embarrassment of riches of people who wanted to be in the movie. Almost, and strangely, there were a lot of really famous people that wanted to be in the movie, and I found it so interesting, realizing that oftentimes they weren't right, and I wanted to find people maybe perhaps who knew no one knew, just to serve the material best, and that's what we did, and I quite frankly pretty much got everybody I went after, and it was not daunting at all. It was great.
Well, this was your first big budget film. What would the Tate Taylor of now like to go back and tell the Tate Taylor of, say, 18 months ago about this? You know, what did you learn?
Well, I learned that having a budget and a seasoned crew sure is helpful. Definitely in what you get on the screen. I wouldn't go back and teach myself a lesson. What I would tell myself at the end, which I knew at the beginning, was you got to be a collaborator. You got to talk to everybody. A great idea can come from the most unsuspecting person, and that was the spirit of the movie, and that's how he operated. So at the end, I would go back and tell Tate Taylor, yes, follow your instincts, collaborate, communicate, have an open door policy. It's the best way. And at the end, in fact, it was.
Well, now the award season starts. You've already picked up a couple of ensemble trophies at various places, but you got Golden Globe voters right now. They've got their ballots, and Screen Actors Guild voters have their ballots, and Oscar voters will in the near future. What's this process like for you now that you're out doing the luncheons and the meet and greets and the Q&As?
Oh man, I'm doing everything. Oh gosh, what's it like? You're asking me. It's a full-time. It's great because at all these things, what I'm proud about the help is it's brought to the forefront conversations people haven't had in a while, and that's really exciting. And as far as the award seasons go, the only thing I can tell you about the Oscar season is the date. That's the only sure thing about Oscar is it's on February 26th. That's it.
You got that date circled on your calendar already?
I do not. I am. I look a day ahead. They're packed.
Well, speaking of the future, I mean, what are you going to do next? What are you circling around that might be your next project?
Well, I'm adapting a novel for DreamWorks right now called Peace Like a River. That's in the mix, and my producer partner John and I are finding our own stuff and developing ideas and material, and I'm just reading a bunch of stuff. Nothing's set in stone yet. I like character and story and ensemble and character-driven pieces, and there's not really a whole lot of them out there, so I'm really having to kind of comb the landscape, but we're getting there.
That would seem to me, when you're coming off a big project, the one of the hardest things in the world to do is find what is next, to make the right choice.
Absolutely, especially after The Help. It's yeah, you named it.
Well, thoroughly enjoyed the movie. Really appreciate all the work you did, and speaking selfishly for a moment, the fact that you promoted Mississippi in a really good light. And wish you all the best here throughout this award season coming up.
I appreciate it. And have you gotten a chance to see the bonus section on the DVD yet?
I have not. I watched the film, but I haven't seen the extras.
You are going to be so proud of our state when you see how you go watch the bonus feature behind the scenes, the making of the film. You're going to be proud.